Welcome. You're listening to How I Did That, a storytelling podcast. Let's jump into today's episode.
Hey,
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Yourself?
I'm good.
Cool. Yeah. So my name's Hiran. I'm the founder of Zess. We actually I founded a company out of frustration about my diet, just the frustration about eating healthy and kind of finding foods that were nutritious, tasty, and good for you. So at the time, I was working for Tesco, and I was looking after their search algorithms and search. And my co-founder at the time was James. So me and him kind of started it, and it started off with us having an idealistic mindset of, hey, the world's fucked. Like, why don't we do something? We should try to fix it. Like, why is it such that we have no good food options around us? Why are we always making poor choices? At the time, we were playing so many video games and we weren't looking after ourselves. And that was the motivation. And interestingly, at the time, the canteen had a massive refresh and they decided to look at the whole menu offering and look at improving the foods to be healthier. Just that small change in our office improved our diets. We felt happier, more energized. And we're talking about it, saying, oh, well, not everyone has this access. Not everyone gets the opportunity for their workplace to like redesign their workplace to make food better. And we were kind of spoiled. Working for Tesco, it's all about food. So we had kind of that luxury. So we were like, oh, let's try to make it more accessible. So at the time, I was saying to my co-founder at the time, still a really good friend, James, I was like, James, we should do something about it. We should do something about it. I think he was a bit reluctant. It's like, I'm not sure. But like, I have a very persistent and annoying personality. So I was just like, no, let's do something. And I think he just like reluctantly said, okay, yeah, let's try. And this is where kind of over time, our passion developed, where we decided to pursue an idea of home cooked food delivered to local people. So the idea was, hey, people are cooking healthy food at home every day. So why don't we get communities to share that? And going down that process, we ran into a few roadblocks, so some challenges with the business. Hygiene being probably the biggest one. And in the US, there was a product called Josephine, I believe, that was around kind of sharing food. But in the UK and Europe, the food safety laws are like crazy strict. So we found it challenging to overcome that. And he was from an engineering background. I was from a product management background, so designing digital products. And we realized we didn't have any expertise in food. So what we did is I put out a Facebook advert, like a super ambiguous Facebook advert. But I was like, if anyone applies to this advert, they're probably a little bit crazy and like super passionate about the problem, because it had no detail. It was like all aspirational. And I was like, okay, this is going to attract the right kind of person, the right kind of crazy that's going to want to take a leap of faith. So I put the advert out, targeting kind of executive chefs around London, and a few candidates come through. So we decided to shortlist them after some calls. And I was like, I don't know how to hire a chef. Like, I've never hired a chef before. I don't know what I'm doing. So I decided to come up with a process. And the process was that I would have the chefs cook, and I would have friends and family to decide which person they think is the best candidate as a chef. So we rented out like a community space, and we had friends and family there, and we had like scorecards and stuff. and then we had a cooking competition. And one of those chefs was Reese, my current co-founder. So he, like, one thing I noticed about Reese immediately was like he was so organized. That was really good and impressive. He turned up, his prep was done, everything was on point. The other chef, super disorganized, turned up late, things just didn't go right for him. So it was a clear winner. But yeah, and the food was fantastic. So everyone voted for Reese, and we had a chat. We had a proper chat and said, look, this is where we want to do. This is where I want to go. We really want to help people eat healthier. We want to do something in the tech space. And that's where it's like, yeah, cool, I want to get involved. And that's where our sort of relationship started developing. The relationship evolved, and we started looking for ways we could kind of move forward. And I remember exploring a few ideas, but one of the ones that really stood out is focusing on having an AI helping to optimize people's diets. And that's where I started thinking about, okay, how do we create something that is never been done before and is really state of the art? So I guess our lucky break, where we got a good lucky break, was in the UK. There's a body called Innovate UK, and that has funds innovative companies and innovative ideas. And you have to demonstrate how you're going to go beyond the state of the art to create something new. We put in an application, and our first time we managed to get the grant. So that was massive for us. It was like, holy crap, like we had literally just an idea, nothing before. And now we have to actually do the thing, which at the time was super daunting. It was like, I've never done this before, never started a company. Like, I literally don't really have much of an idea around really what it entails, because I think you only really learn something when you do it one time or a few times. Mm-hmm. But I kind of knew the theory because I came from, I did a business and computer science degree. My dad's always been super entrepreneurial. He's pretty much been my inspiration behind, having the drive and passion to start a company. But yeah, so we went down that track, we applied, and I think we looked at it, there was around 2,200 applicants and around a 6% acceptance rate. So, super, super small. And as a part of that project, we managed to obtain a really, really fruitful partnership with Professor Claire Mills at the University of Manchester. So that was really cool. And Claire and I, we get on so well. I think we're the same type of inventive. We've got the same type of inventive madness and chaos that we really riff well off each other. And we're able to kind of, go down these rabbit holes of thinking of like, oh, what if this could happen? And, what if we could do this? And, she really entertains that, which I think is really constructive when you're trying to come up with something new and trying to find new ways of doing things. So yeah, and that's kind of how we got our start. And now we're focusing on developing an app that will match people to the right food for them, depending on their dietary needs, their preferences, and their goals. So you could say, hey, I'm looking to build muscle, I'm vegan, I'm allergic to peanuts, here are some of the things I like, here are some things I dislike. And we're able to take kind of multiple factors into consideration to recommend meals. And then in the future, we're looking to kind of connect up into restaurants and to make that easier as well. One of the early customers that we know that are really important for us is people with special dietary needs, so food allergies and intolerances, because they struggle the most about when deciding what to eat. And it's very difficult. There's just generally a lack of information online, and labeling that information is also very difficult and typically a lot of ingredients have hidden allergens and things like that. So that's our core, I guess, proposition of what we're working towards. Yeah.
Where are you living right now? Because I'm in Canada. So when you mentioned Tesco, like we don't have a Tesco around here. And I don't think a lot of people listening would know.
So we're based in the UK, just outside of London. So I'm in Luton, and Reese is based in Market Harborough. So we're a fully remote company as well. So no one lives near each other, basically.
You were working at Tesco in London, right? But even then you said that you felt there was poor accessibility to healthy options. But London is like a major city. So
the head office was in Welwyn Garden City. So it was outside of London. So where we were working was outside of London. But within London, there's lots of good options. But outside of London, I think it's a struggle.
Unless people basically have the money or have a job in London and are able to spend, enough to live in London. Otherwise, if you're kind of outside the major cities, it's like not very accessible.
Yeah, it's a lot harder. I think that, lots of people rely on supermarket shopping. So like these supermarket shops. So if you know how to cook, if you know how to prepare something for less, that's tasty and quick, then, you're able to cater to yourself. But not everyone has the skills, has the time. So a big thing about what we're trying to do really is making healthy eating as easy as possible. So, how can it be frictionless? And I think Jeff Bezos mentioned something about Amazon and how, if you want to, I think the quote was paraphrasing it badly, but if you want to eat healthier, then put all your unhealthy snacks on the top shelf. And I think that's generally an ethos Amazon does with buying. So the behavior that they want is they want people to purchase. And so by getting people to purchase, how do they do that? They make it as frictionless as possible to purchase. Amazon Dash, one click, all these kinds of technologies. So in our sense, we're like, oh, what if we apply that to healthy eating and try to make healthy eating frictionless and as easy as possible? And that's kind of, the driving force behind what we're doing.
Right, because you mentioned that you started this out of frustration from your own diet.
I think it was mostly time, because we're investing a lot of hours into work. And just lack of motivation, I would think. So I think there's definitely like a psychological component, and there's definitely a utility component. So just because you might have some of the tools, if you're not psychologically in the right place to change that behavior, you're not going to take action to make a change. And vice versa, you might be in a place where you want to make a change, but you might not have the tools or the resources and knowledge or whatever to make it happen. So the behavior change psychology aspects are also an important part of kind of what we're looking to do and where we're going.
What was that thought process of coming up with like, okay, how do we see what's already out there and how can we provide something different? And what do you think makes you guys stand out?
I have a specific philosophy around the way I think personally. Everyone's different about innovation. Is my personal philosophy is a little bit taking inspiration from the music industry. So what makes Lil Nas X Lil Nas X? It's just him. It's his personality. It's what he stands for. His hit song, it was only a hit because it was uniquely him. So my innovation strategy is that it's like I don't look at outside. I'm actually like a little bit anal about it, of like not looking at what other people are doing, because I like to think about these self-referential loops. So that's one kind of idea, and direct observation. They're kind of the two tools I use to come up with something new. So it's a little bit taking some philosophies from Eastern kind of philosophies and meditation, but like how can we look upon ourselves to find out more about ourselves and about our values and what we want to do, and how do we look out into the world and take these direct observations to decide what conclusions that we see, and how can we use those conclusions to make something new. And it's a much more peaceful place because time is no longer a component, because you're not worried about people beating you to market. You don't have this worry about being innovative because you're just responding to the world and the universe directly. And then it kind of reveals itself over time. So I don't know if that made sense, but that's kind of the way I kind of see it.
When I have listened to entrepreneurs talking, they were like, okay, well, when you want to start a company, you need to make sure you do all your research, see who your competitors are, see what you can do differently. But your strategy is the opposite.
It's not that I'm against research. I'm really for research. We do a lot of research, like tons of research.
Yeah.
But that's what I call direct observation. That's us looking out into the world. We do some competitor benchmarking, but like getting parity on certain features and things like that. But we don't drive our decisions based on what competitors are doing. We drive our decisions based on what we want to do and the way we see the world. And I think, companies that do that really well, in my opinion, are companies like Apple. I mean, they've always done it. People complain, oh, they've updated their design. I think, the notch. Why have you put a notch in the phone? It's like, because they wanted to. And they knew that would be a signature feature that no one had. And that signature feature will become iconic and it will shape the iPhone for the next 10 years. And that could have been anything. They could have made it look like anything and people would always have an opinion. But what makes them unique is that they know themselves really well, and they know their customers really well, and they just focus on innovation. I would say that Amazon do the same thing in the sense that they focus on the customer. They say they're the most customer-centric company in the world. That's their slogan. And they're really good at it. And they work backwards from the customer and trying to figure out kind of what works for them. And that's how they come up with something new. Same with Netflix. They beat out Blockbuster. Same approach. Okay, what we're doing, let's deliver movies to people by post. Cool, kind of working, doing pretty good. But how do we go further? Well, what about if we could just send it digitally to them? And then, it's Netflix of today. And that took them a very, very long time. I believe it was 1997 they started. I believe that's when they first started. And that took them a long time. So I just seen it being applied multiple times. And I think it's a harder strategy because it takes longer, but it's probably more fruitful because you're building on foundations that are truly solid, right? Because as a part of it is not only looking at the tactics of how you can position yourself in the marketplace, but it's also about deciding as a team of people what values and what motivations you want to drive the company forward. And a lot of the time, the ideas don't come from me. They come from the team. But without us having that core foundation, people haven't got an anchor in order to shape the company and in order to drive it forward. So I think, those factors become much easier where you're not worrying, are these people really invested? Are they really bought in? Do they really believe in the vision? Because it's hard to fake when you have a culture where it's all about that, right? You can't fake it. It's a part of the DNA.
So I had a few questions related to what you had said earlier about some of the challenges you faced when you had somehow found out that there was this competition going on and submitted like a business plan for Zess and where you wanted to go with it. So, and when you won, they gave you funding as well as, like you mentioned, a professor that you were able to get in touch with. So did they provide you with contacts to help you as well as funding? And like, what did you get out of winning it? Like things that would help you move your business forward?
Sure. So before that time, it was just Reese, myself, and James. Unfortunately, James couldn't come on full time because of his personal commitments. So Reese and I continued, and along with the grant funding, we were able to build this collaboration with Manchester, where it's really helped to shape the technology and help to identify new opportunities, because the University of Manchester is just an institution with an immense amount of knowledge. And I feel that collaborating with them and with Professor Mills and Professor and Dr. Sorrel Burden, who's kind of works in dietetics has been a real valuable experience for designing the product in a scientifically valid way, and us focusing on building the algorithms in a way where we are thinking about the efficacy of the product and also the quality of the data. Because I feel that there's a lot of products out there where they try to skip certain steps and not look at the data quality. And I feel that by having that relationship with Manchester, we're really able to kind of, do things properly. So that's one of the massive benefits. And the other thing is they give you business support. So they give you kind of, I think it's Innovate UK Edge. That's what they call it. And we have a business mentor who kind of works with us to shape the business on an ongoing basis, and helps us kind of look at our exploitation plan and how we're going to monetize and get to market. And that's been a massive help as well, getting that support. So yeah, only good things to say about Innovate UK. It's been really, really good. And there's obviously future grants that now it sets us up to, lines us up to apply for as well.
After you got all these resources through the competition, I'm going to go to some of the challenges you mentioned that you faced. So you talked about food safety, but what were some of the other challenges that you found came up that, like you said, you can't really know what something is going to entail until you do it yourself. So what were some obstacles that you didn't expect? Because you also had this team helping you now, move your business forward. Yeah.
So the food safety thing was before all of the Innovate stuff. That's when we pivoted away from delivering local food. But the key challenges for the Innovate stuff was building a team. Hard challenge. I mean, it's gone from James and I coding everything ourselves and just like sitting in a room and chatting on Skype and just like being really good friends. So you can talk to each other in any way you want, right? And playing video games in our breaks, to like actually running a company. So that is a cultural change where we're like, oh, we actually have to like treat this like work, because before it wasn't like work. We had jobs. We were doing this because we wanted to, and it was fun, and we were making progress, but it was still something on the side. But now it's like crunch time. You're going full time. This is your thing. You need to focus. You're committed to this plan of execution, and you got to do it. So that was a sobering moment of like, okay, let's do this. And on top of that, James not being able to go on the journey at that time. So I was like, shit, like I'm on my own here. Like I have to do this, right? And, Reese is fantastic, but he doesn't have those technical skills. So really it was about doubling down and thinking how we're going to move forward. So that's when we hired Joe, the bioinformatics engineer, and Costas, the machine learning engineer. And they kind of had some years of experience, but they hadn't had many senior roles. So a lot of my time in early days was spent around just working closely, just like not being a boss, but being a teammate. And how do I work alongside people to really figure out what direction we need to go, and solving some of the technical challenges and technical issues that typically if James was on the journey, he would be solving. So I was almost doing two jobs, right? I was doing my CEO role of how do we grow the company, and the CTO role of how do we build this thing, which, really challenging. So if I imagine the first 6 to 8 months, super, super hard. I think that was the major challenge of like, we've taken on an innovation project and they pick you because it's state of the art, and you're going into it with a CTO that you trust and can execute. And then, due to personal circumstances, they can't be there. I think that was the main challenge of like being with the team, upskilling, coaching them through it, working through those problems. Whereas now we're just finishing up the project. Everything's gone well. Mm-hmm. So super proud about, getting through that hurdle.
How long was that? So when you said you just completed the project and everything's going well, how long has it been since that initial starting point until?
It's a year's project, so it's October to October 2020. It was a year's project.
So. Okay, and was it like that project? Was it to develop your website and get the marketing out, or what were you specifically trying to accomplish in that year?
So it's all to do with the algorithm. So Innovate UK were kind of funding the research and development side. So it's more to do with the algorithm, and they're not really funding the marketing or advertising and that kind of stuff. They're just funding the core technology that's going to power the system, the AI.
Okay, so if I were to go on Zess right now, because you said you're in the middle of like developing an app now. So was this just web-based earlier, like just on a website?
It was more it's literally just the back-end algorithms. That's what we were developing. But moving towards kind of the app, it's about connecting the back-end technologies that we have into a nice user experience that kind of now we've got like a nice MVP prototype. And it's about kind of, getting that developed and building that. So we're aiming to do a crowdfund in January. And we're just working towards kind of making some new hires around like full stack engineering to be able to build the app, and also maybe a marketing role in there as well.
Before this app is fully developed, if a user wanted to experience Zess and use it, would they just go to the Zess website and all of that technology, like the AI powered technology, is going to figure out like the best meal plan or whatever for me, and it would be through the website?
So what we started with is it's just a landing page. So it was just a pre-register page. We're like, hey, here's the value proposition. This is what we're doing. If you're interested, we're currently building, so just enter your email. So it was just collecting emails. And right now, we've been kind of marketing that landing page out there and really refining our message. Then the app launch, we're focusing on January, where we can get it into the early hands of users, where they can start kind of using it and playing about with it. Whereas next year is going to be about kind of developing that further and refining it and improving it. Which is exciting. Yeah, can't wait to, put things out there.
Oh, okay. So if I currently were to go on the Zess website, because I had went on the website, but I wasn't sure how to use it. So I guess it's because it's not actually like available for users at this time. It's only going to be available through the app.
Exactly.
Walk me through the Zess experience when the app launches, and say I download it. What do I do to actually become a customer? How do I get the most out of it?
Sure. Yeah. So what you would do, you'd sign up. So you jump on the app and we'll tell us a little bit about your goals. So, you might be trying to build muscle, lose weight, maybe some other goals. Kind of tell us a little bit about why that's important to you. And we go into some kind of behavioral science aspects of thinking about your motivation and what's kind of driving you. Entering your allergen information. We're starting with just the 14 allergens that are the EU kind of Annex 2 allergens. But really, we're looking to go beyond that and allow people to kind of enter any kind of allergy in. And then entering any information about kind of what you like and dislike, along with your dietary needs. So I'm vegan. These are some of the foods I like. And then what that does is that tells the AI, hey, this is kind of me. And as you use the product over time, and as you plan meals, it will get to know you in more detail and will help make that decision making much, much easier. So, this is kind of what you'd recommend for breakfast. Maybe this is something you recommend for, a post-gym workout. And it kind of gets to know your dietary patterns so that it's able to be as useful as possible, where we can kind of link into restaurants and things in the future.
So when you say link with restaurants in the future, do you mean that like, for example, what I mentioned earlier about Zess creators. So you have a section of your, like a part of your business is these creators who are making recipes for their blog or whatever, but they're also sending them to you guys. So if someone is using the app, they don't necessarily have to get meal delivery. They can also just get recipes that align with their needs.
Exactly. And that's a part of the ecosystem we want to create, is this more 360 experience, whether it's recipes, whether it's eating out with friends. How can you create a 360 experience that supports people to eat healthy, that then in turn makes it frictionless and easy to do so? And this is kind of the main concept behind what we want to do, is just make it as inclusive as possible and make it as easy as possible by being in all the touch points that you're expecting.
Okay, so with the 360 experience, it's either you'll link up with restaurants, so whatever the restaurant has on their menu, it will, make sure whatever allergens or whatever your preferences are, those things would be recommended to you, or you cook at home through recipes that creators have made or other recipes on your platform, or you have meal delivery.
Exactly, or supermarkets and anything else in between, right? So as the market changes, we can always kind of adapt over time to like fit the distribution channels that customers are eating through. So by doing that, it will allow us to create a more 360 picture about what people are eating. And that means that, even if you travel abroad, it's like, hey, I know you hate soy sauce, so I'm not going to show you this. I'm going to show you these meals because this is what you're likely going to like, that kind of thing.
But when you mentioned traveling abroad, like, is this only available in the UK right now?
So next year we'll be launching worldwide with the recipes. Okay. And then restaurants we're probably going to be focusing on the UK first.
Are you thinking of expanding to different countries? Because linking up with different supermarkets and different restaurants in different countries would be, be on a very large scale, because like every restaurant chain is not available in every country either. But that would be really cool to see.
Yeah. And that's going to take a heck of a lot of time, but it's about breaking down that bigger vision into smaller chunks and thinking, okay, diligently work towards these pieces one at a time.
And this is one of the only companies that I have heard of that does more than just like, there are some companies that do meal delivery in our area. I don't know if they're in the UK, but a lot of them will, like HelloFresh and other things, they will send you the ingredients to make things at home. So would you guys do something like that as well, where you might just send someone the ingredients, or is it like they make the food at home through the recipe, or you actually have someone cook it and send it to them?
Not sure. I think we're kind of leaving it open-ended for now, because we see them as adjacent markets that could potentially be good to get into in the future. But what we really focus on is just meal planning at the moment. And then later on, we may be able to do some of those services ourselves, depending on, timing and when we think it's a good time.
Yeah, you guys really do have a full 360 experience. Like if I was in a position where it was like, I'm finding it difficult to cook and I don't have the motivation to eat healthy, or I don't have accessibility, like it's not accessible in my area or whatever the reason may be, and I want to have a better lifestyle in terms of food, you guys offer things on the entire spectrum, right? For somebody who might just want the entire meal, or for someone who might want to cook at home, or for someone who eats out a lot. Who is on your team right now, aside from, like you mentioned, a bioinformatics engineer, machine learning engineer, and you to develop the algorithm? And aside from that, who else is on your team?
So we've got Reese as well. So Reese is looking after the food aspects. So, really working mostly on the social media side at the moment, and also the deli fillers, which I can talk about and how that came to be. And also Daisy. So Daisy works as a social media lead. And we have Chloe, who works part-time as a nutritionist. And also she's got a master's in maths. So she helps us with the algorithm side. So that's the team. There are a bunch of part-time people as well that just kind of help out in different ways.
When you mention nutritionist, what is their role? You are basically making a meal plan kind of for somebody, right? Giving them suggestions so she can help make sure you include all the correct. Okay, I see.
That's right. In terms of the data quality and the suggestions and the way the algorithm works, she helps with, coming up with the right like checking the recommendations and making sure that they're high quality.
And in the process of like developing this app and just the business in general, you mentioned there are a lot of part-time people. What kind of things have you seen where you're like, oh, like I have a nutritionist and I have like someone who knows how to code and I have someone doing the social media side? Were there any roles that you were kind of like, I didn't really think that this would come up. Like, I don't have someone who knows how to do it, if that makes sense.
Definitely. Yeah. There are. I think, so what we did when we first we first did the Innovate project is we created an org chart of all the different roles that we think, and we keep it updated every half a year, I'd say 6 months-ish. And that gives us a good understanding of like which roles we think are missing, and when we get funding, which ones we think we want to fill first and which other ones we might want to fill later. And it's really a work in progress. But yeah, that's definitely like full stack engineers, the next one that we really need to hire quickly, because that will help us get kind of the app developed and out there.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And you guys are fully remote, so you have like the entire world at your fingertips in terms of hiring.
Which is brilliant. And that's something we haven't taken advantage of. We're all UK based so far, because the way that the grant works is you can only hire out of the UK. But now we're moving forward, it really does open up that room to look for talent across the world. Which, yeah, I'm kind of trying to figure out the best way of approaching it without making it too cumbersome and chaotic.
When you're in the process of developing this app, you have a lot of data that you must have collected in advance. So how did you do that data collection?
So a lot of the data is from proprietary data sources that we subscribe to. Other data comes from, say, the university and data sets and data sources that they know of. And some of the other data just comes from the internet and, really just sourcing it. We also had around 6 part-time data annotators. And they were helping us to kind of curate and collect that data to make sure it was accurate. So yeah, a mixture of different sources.
Okay. And then moving forward to the marketing side of things, so like social media manager and marketing, all that, how have you been able to get the word out about the company? Like whenever you make a product, it's like, okay, the product's being made, but how do you actually get a customer base?
Yeah, I think it depends on... So I want to separate kind of marketing and branding here. So for the marketing side, we use a lot of Google Analytics and we use a lot of Facebook advertising. And we find that works pretty well of allowing us to hone in our campaigns and target the right kinds of customers to convert on our landing pages. But there are also is a whole new thing that we're kind of kicking off about own content. So we really started off thinking about how do we build a community of like-minded people that are passionate, and how do we just kind of, really give value and just be there for the community to kind of incubate it. And then now we've got to a stage where we've got some fantastic people and like they amaze us all the time. Honestly, like I turn up, like I'm not really close to what's going on because Daisy looks after a lot of it, but I turn up and I just see these fantastic creations. I'm just floored. I'm like, how has someone created something so amazing? And some of the food photography and stuff is fantastic. So yeah, I definitely think there's a really nice community and there's a good vibe and people help each other, which is good. And now it's about how do we create our own content as Zess, and how do we work together with creators to really create something new. So this is a space we haven't really explored. It's in our to-do list for the next couple of months of really taking that pilgrimage of that self-referential loop. And like, okay, there's loads of companies doing lots of stuff, but what do we want to do? What kind of content do we want to put out? What do we want to say? What kind of customers do we want to target? What kind of messages do we want to target them with? Is there anything that we don't know? How do we go out there and learn it? Where are other people? Where is our target market? Where is our target market consuming their content? And how do we understand why they're consuming that content and what value they get from it? So we understand like who we are. So I think it's a lot of research to do to figure out how we market how we brand more effectively, and how we reach more people. But our real strategy over the next kind of year is, how do we provide entertainment, right? How do we become a community of people that are working together to create recipes to a media company that provides entertainment? And that's kind of the next leg of the journey, which is exciting. And I love that stuff because I love making music. So I love the creative side of stuff. So yeah, this is going to be really fun.
Oh, that's so exciting. Do you do like music as a hobby as well?
Yeah, I do music as a hobby. Well, I used to do music as a hobby more, but I would like to get back into it again once like I have more time and kind of Zess is a lot more stable and there's a lot more on the team and I can delegate more. But right now, yeah, I do it every now and again.
Nice. Was it like singing instruments? Like what in the world of music was it?
Yeah, it's mostly music production, so electronic music. So working with a lot of hip hop artists, like trap music, grime, make a lot of techno now, deep house. And now my new thing that I want to go into is more, I guess, techno and ambient kind of house music, melodic house music.
That's super cool. Are you on Spotify? Do you have music on Spotify? What is this? I want to find it. I'm going to put it in the podcast description so people could check it out.
Yeah, that's great. It's Hiren Umradia. It's just my name. Hiren space Umradia, Umradia. But yeah, I'll send you as well.
Cool. Okay. I'm gonna put this link in the Spotify in the podcast description. Okay, so now I want to move forward to the plant-based deli fillers. Can you talk a bit about that? Why and how did you decide to make it plant-based? Because, well, Zess is not a fully plant-based company, right? And aside from that, like, how did you come up with the idea? What was involved in terms of testing the flavors? Like, I'm sure Reese was probably involved a lot in that because he's like the chef. So, the packaging, exactly. All of that. How did that work?
So I think so the way it kind of came about was that we were looking at the business and we realized that you've got this technology side that's super high risk, super high reward. So you get it right, you get customers using it, you get subscriptions, you validate that you're having less churn than the money you're making, and then you kind of scale it up and you're able to grow very quickly through the right investment and really reach global scale. But that's really about helping people make better food choices. And our real overall objective is like, how do we help humanity kind of eat healthier and live more sustainably? So one of the critical factors that we were missing in our ecosystem was food access. It's fine if you're saying, hey, why don't you make all these choices? They're really good for you. But then you can't get access to the foods. It doesn't really help. I mean, it's just kind of showing people what they could have if they had the access. So we're like, okay, where can we start in terms of food access? And then we thought, well, what skills do we have internally? And as Reese is a chef, he was like, oh, yeah, let's maybe work on a food product. So yeah, that's how it kind of started. And the inspiration behind it, I was just sitting there one day and I'd become vegetarian. I'm still vegetarian now. And my dad, he still eats meat. And he was eating a deli filler. I think it was like a chicken mayo kind of dealio. And I was busy. I was in between meetings. I was just rushing around, and I looked around my fridge, and I was like, "Oh, what else is there? What can I eat?" And there was just nothing. Well, there was stuff, of course, but I just couldn't be bothered to cook, and I was lazy. So I was like, "Okay." I don't know what to make. And then I sat down and I just looked over at my dad and I was like, I wish I could just have a fucking sandwich right now. I'm not asking for much. I'm not asking for the world. I just want a fucking sandwich. And in the West, like there's nothing more Western than a sandwich. I mean, America's built icons around the hamburger. So, it is the thing. right? And so I was like, okay, I'm going to go online and I'm going to search for it. I just want to buy it. So I went online and started looking. I was like, why isn't there nothing out there? Looked at more places.
Like a vegetarian, like meat filler for your sandwich?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like, why isn't there anything out there? And I kept looking and looking. And I was like, that's weird. So this is direct observation again. I was like, I think this is a thing, but I need more data. Right. I'm going to run a survey. So we ran a survey with 220 vegan and vegetarian people, a statistically significant sample across the UK using a tool called Pollfish. And we designed the questions. So finding out about price range and all these kinds of stuff. And around 65% of people on a scale of 0 to 100, where 0 I would never buy, and 100 would be I would most definitely buy, 62% of people said over 50. So I was like, that's a significant portion of people. And 25%, around 25%, said 100. So I was like, that's good data. And then I started looking at what price people are willing to pay, and they said between £3 and £5, but typically they would be willing to pay between £1.50 and say £2 for a deli filler. So I noticed there was a lot of added value, perceived added value. So at that point, I knew that there was something there, and I then went back to Reese and I said, Reese, we should do this. And he was like, I think his first reaction, he just laughed. He's like, what? Deli filler? Because the thing is, like, people are looking at meal kits, protein bars, snack bars, and I'm the type of person that I want to find the blue ocean. I don't want to compete with other people in these different categories or copies of one. You know, I'm just looking at not even the stigma attached to a deli filler. I don't care about that. It's a category of product that people eat all the time, that's unhealthy, that's unfashionable, which makes it prime for innovation. I was like, this is literally the category of product that needs to be
unfashionable.
Yeah, because, you know, and that's one thing I'm learning about foodies, and I'm not a foodie myself. It's like, it's all about trends and fashion. Like, I'm opposite of that. I'm just a massive nerd that likes to make cool shit. Like, that is me. And like, I just saw it as like this, it ticks the boxes. So, yeah, when we went down that path, we commissioned a report. That was the next big thing. We said, okay, commission a global report, just doing a full market analysis of whether this thing exists so that we can make a decision. So went out there, done research, come back. It's like, hey, this thing doesn't exist. It's like, that's cool. And we think it's a big enough market to enter. So that's when we started doing our R&D. And I think there was just generally a lot of healthy conflict between Reese and I, because I think Reese has lots of great knowledge about being a chef, but he has never developed a product from scratch. So I think his view was, if we have an agency or blah, blah to do it, they'll help us get to market and blah, blah. Me, I'm the opposite. I'm like, we're doing it ourselves, because I've done this process so many times. I understand that the people that are going to be most passionate about a product and know it in and out are us. And we're going to go that extra mile. We're going to work harder and we're going to get it done. And we made some choices that moved away working with agencies. That was one of the key decisions, and doing it ourselves. And as a part of that, I used a lot of my technology knowledge and product management knowledge to apply the same technology principles to the food industry. So we created a process of testing with customers, getting their feedback, having kind of scorecards. Like, even within our household, when we were scoring the food, we weren't allowed to talk to each other. There was no conferring. We had like removed bias as much as possible. We had very scientific procedures that we went through to be able to measure how well we were doing at each step and each iteration, where we had some archetype of what we were trying to achieve that we'd learned from our customer interviews and our research panel and our survey data and our market analysis to be able to synthesize that to come up with, okay, these are the factors we're looking for a product, and how do we iterate towards those factors? And that's where Reese kind of done an amazing job of jumping in, listening to that feedback, synthesizing it, and converting that into actionable chefy stuff that turned it into the product we see today. But now we're super grateful because the response we're getting is fantastic. I mean, it's been really, really overwhelming. And now it's about how do we scale up? That's the hardest thing. There's just so much demand. We're trying to figure out now of like, how do we actually scale this thing up? And we have a food manufacturer, but the key thing at the moment, the current challenge is distribution. So how do we kind of work through the distribution problem and get to an early distributor or go direct to consumer? And that's the current dilemma at the moment of like, do we figure out how we go direct to consumer, or do we kind of go through a distributor? And then in terms of our customer base, we've got a few large leads from a few huge kind of companies, which is great. But they take a long time. The sales cycle is going to be 6 to 8 months. I know that. So, it's about figuring out, okay, who are some of the smaller customers? And actually during the process, something I missed out is we had a local calf that we gave this product out to just sample. And then we gave her that. She was like, they're fantastic. And then she replied back, can I have the same next week? And we're like, okay. Can I have the same next week? And then we just started getting repeat orders for it. So that's when I knew at that point, the work in research and development and the testing with customers was paying off, because her customers were coming back to say, can I have that sandwich? So that was a good tick for me. And I knew, okay, cool. At that point, a lot of our hypotheses were validated. And then we had new challenges. And that's where we went on to Lunch Show, which helped us to, attract leads from, some high profile leads, and also kind of learn more about what's going on in the industry. And also I connected with a lot of plant-based entrepreneurs from other plant-based brands and vegan brands, who it was really great to meet them and, great to kind of network and just understand more about what they're doing, because I find that it's a very supportive community, and people were very helpful. And I think, one thing I want to do over the next year is kind of nurture some of those relationships and figure out how different plant-based brands, we can work together. And the reason why plant-based is so important is, meat consumption is one of the biggest factors towards, sustainability. And we're feeling that, if we can appeal to people choosing to eat less meat, even if they don't give it up entirely, it makes a huge difference. So, that's the kind of reason why we're focusing purely on plant-based, because we believe it will have the biggest impact to society.
How many flavors do you have of your deli fillers?
We've got 3 flavors, and we've got one secret one that is unreleased, but I can't say yet. We've got the Italian caponata, which is like aubergine base. Then we've got the Indian dansak, sweet potato dansak. That's got kind of chickpeas and sweet potatoes and dansak spice blend. And then we've got a Mexican barbacoa. So it's kind of fiery, spicy. It's got a lot of chili, not too much, but it's got a good kick. But it's got that kind of smoky barbecue kind of taste.
Okay, so you have the 3 are released, and the 4th one is the one that's like secret. Okay.
Yeah, it's secret because it didn't make the cut, because the taste was amazing, but the nutritional profile wasn't where we needed to be. Because we're doing this for kind of healthy eating reasons, make sure that all the products tick all of our boxes before, hit those quality control metrics before they go out.
I wish I could try it, because like you guys don't ship outside of the UK right now.
Not yet. Yeah, I'd love to send you over a box, but I don't know if it would even survive.
Yeah. I'll get like fungus barbacoa at that point.
Please
so,
don't.
yeah. Okay. Not now. When you say that it has to check the boxes for the nutritional profile. What exactly are you looking for? Because all of your fillers seem to be like, they are plant-based and they're very heavy on like the vegetables or the beans or the chickpeas. So it seems like it has a lot of nutrition. So what more are you looking to fill specifically?
So yeah, those ones have been designed that way to be as nutritious as possible. So there are lots of we're using all natural vegetables and stuff, and actually the base uses wonky veg, so all the veg that is kind of look ugly.
Oh, that would have been thrown out at grocery stores.
Yeah, so that's got base as a kind of base. So, but this other product, we just have a threshold of what good nutritional profile looks like, and this just simply falls out of that spectrum. But we have to do a little bit of innovation for this particular one to get it within that range, but we've got some ideas around how we can do that. I can't say too much about it, but
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. When would it be released?
Ideally next year. So we don't want to do too much at once. We want to do these 3 and do them well, and then focusing on retail next year. So right now we're focused on food service, so selling into kind of schools and kind of hospitals and maybe offices, places like that, where we have larger quantities. And then later on next year, looking at kind of retail pots where, we hope to release that one with retail. And then the other thing is we're looking at seasonality as well. But yeah, that's a whole nother thing. We're not going to get into that because, we've got so much to do already. It's just like, but it is an idea, once people get used to the flavors, how we introduce seasonality to kind of mix it up and be a bit different.
And when you said that you take like wonky vegetables, so how do you get a hold of these?
So we've got a kind of ingredient supply chain with like different wholesalers and distributors that provide different components. So there's someone that provides that kind of, we're going to the right suppliers and wholesalers. So Reese has done a really good job of like connecting up all these back-end suppliers into this pipeline where it's then, goes through the food manufacturer, and the food manufacturer has all the specifications, how to prepare it. They've been trained. That has all the kind of yield and the quantity. So it's all kind of put together nicely where we can scale it up. The whole supply chain is set up now, so now we can kind of increase this within reason to and now our next challenge is distribution. It's like, okay, fine, we've made a massive vat of deli filler. We're going to go, how are we going to push it out to the different sites? So that's our current challenge that we're learning how to navigate.
You mentioned that you had a food manufacturer. So these products are all being cooked like in a factory?
Yes.
Okay. So on like the larger scale, they're getting those out there. And then the packaging is being done as well over there?
Yes. So the packaging that's currently been sent out is just like prototype. Literally, I made the labels one evening, just really quickly. But we've got an illustrator from Paris who's done some really cool, nicely designed labels. Nice. So they're going to be they're going through the QA process of making sure the right materials, shape, who can print them, all that stuff. And then we're making sure that the tubs we can source are recyclable and good quality. So packaging is a whole other thing, but we prioritize the food over the packaging to begin with, just so that we can get the product right. And now it's about taking the inputs from the Paris-based illustrator, and we've got a design agency based in Eastern Europe that have kind of put together the labels to make them look really cool. And I'm really proud of the labels, actually. They look fun.
That's awesome.
They've got like a really hand-drawn feel. They're really fun. They express the different cultures in a way which is authentic, and it's not super refined. It's like really playful. So yeah, she's done a really great job. And the brief was like we let her really explore, to be honest, to let her do what she thinks is right. And then there was a back and forth and some collaboration to really, really hone things in. But I think we're both proud and happy with the end output. And that's actually the stand that we had at lunch. The background of it is based on her illustrations and her labels.
Okay. I wanted to talk to you about the launch show, but before I ask that, I was wondering that you mentioned 65% of those 220 plant-based or like vegan or vegetarian people you had collected data from. So you said about 65% of them said that they would likely purchase, like over 50 that they purchase your product. And then what was it, like 25%?
25% said 100, like most said. Yeah.
So did you notice that the demand you're getting now, did it align with what you collected the data with? Like for the data you collected? Okay.
The way to think about it is like metrics only tell you about the world. They don't tell you what the world is about. So, by going and looking at first-hand data, that's really the secret sauce of most great products, of like really going out there and doing the research and speaking to people and understanding their motivations. I mean, that's 90% of it. And then by having a solution that's scalable in whatever sense, in the digital sense or the physical sense, you should be able to measure that with those metrics. So, it kind of lines up over time. And if it doesn't line up in the end, there's probably something wrong with the solution where you need to kind of keep pivoting and making it work.
How long was this process from when you had initially thought of these deli fillers until now? How long has it been, or since until the launch happened?
I first thought of the idea in December 2020. That was the first thought.
So pretty close to when you started the Zess project in general, which was October. Oh, okay.
Exactly. Because it was like, we were focusing on the tech side, and I was like, oh, Reese's experience is here, and how do we kind of, make the most out of all of our experience? So it was like, we've got the capabilities internally, so why don't we launch something else in parallel?
So now I wanted to get to the launch. When you had everything ready to, give out to customers, how did you go about it? And how, was there just like a business launch day happening and you registered for it and you were able to put up a booth, or what happened? How did you go about that?
So yeah, it's interesting. So we connected with Mark Taylor from Bloom Food Service. So he was ex-sales director of Unilever Food Service, and he was also an ex-sales director of, I think it was education and public sector for Premier Foods. So he had a lot of relationships, and Reese found him online and said, hey, he's got a lot of connects into where we can go forward and sell. And so we met him at our office, and we're like, oh, we need to really kind of show him what we're about. And what was really clear on that day is how our passion really translated well, and how we all felt very aligned. Like we all kind of felt like we were on the same wavelength and we wanted to work together. So he really helped to kind of shape our early trajectory and to say, this is what you need to do. These are the trade events you need to go to. This is where we need to kind of get to with the product. These are the milestones we need to hit, and helped us put some of that structure in place. And he's kind of guiding us and helping us on that journey to get a route to market into food service, where we're always catching up. Like tomorrow we've got a meeting at 5, sorry. So yeah, we're kind of going on that path. And then before lunch, he was like, this is the place to be. Lunch, this is the perfect lunchtime product. This is the show. Let's do it. So we decided to go for it. And that was kind of a lot of planning from everyone on, especially Reese, who worked super hard on it, of like going there, setting up, getting all the food prepped. We had samples. We actually partnered with Electrolux Professional. So they were there, and we went to their test kitchen and tested out samples on their Speedy Light machine, which is fantastic.
What's a Speedy Light?
Yeah, so it's basically so if you think of old school panini grills, this is like a Ferrari. So it's got infrared, it's got microwave, and it's got like a plate on top. So the infrared toasts the bottom and crisps it up. The microwave makes sure that the filling is nicely warmed, and the plate at the top avoids squashing the food and makes light contact. It's got pressure sensors to make sure it has like grill marks. So what you do, you program it with the different settings for the different types of foods, and then it just comes out perfect every time. So literally you just put the sample in, you press the button, 45 seconds later, it's perfect. And so we really wanted to think about the whole end-to-end solution for operators. So say if you're like a big, multi-site operator, you can put a machine in, you can have the settings for the deli filler and the food, press a button, 45 seconds later, you've got your food products perfectly cooked, and that avoids, high labor costs of training and things like that. So yeah, that's kind of how we got that partnership up and running. And yeah, on the day it was very eventful. I think setting up, first trade show, didn't know what to expect. Absolute chaos. But no one realized because it was like contained chaos. Everything went super smooth, like super smooth on the days. Really grateful for everyone's support there. I mean, it was really, everyone worked super hard, and yeah, just really grateful. And yeah, we learned so much about potential customers. We've got loads of leads out of it. So now we're just kind of working through those leads, and met some great people and lots of great samples. So much food. I honestly had like 3 bags worth of food that we still got kicking around, like random snack bars, things like that. So,
when you say like trade show, is this just like small businesses that provide food, or what type of businesses go to this trade show?
It's a lunchtime show, so anyone offering lunchtime foods. So there was literally so many brands there, and yeah, it was really fun. New experience for me. It was in London XL, so like a huge venue, and there was actually 3 different trade shows next to each other. There was casual dining at one end, there was commercial kitchens in the middle, and then there was lunch, and it was just like one huge hall with like so many stalls.
So was it also restaurants that were like new restaurants that would provide samples of their food as well?
Exactly. In casual dining, that's the kind of thing that was there. And there were whole 2 sections on like beer and spirits. And like on the last day, I was really trying my hardest to spend as much time taking through samples, but unfortunately I had so much other stuff to do. I was interrupted constantly, but I did manage to have some great shots of gin and a few beers, which was nice.
The only kind of like trade shows that I've gone to are just like small business pop-ups, or like small businesses that are holding like events, but not specifically just for lunch. Because when you said lunch, I thought you meant launch. So I thought you kept saying like launch show, and I was like, okay, but what was the launch show?
No, like actual lunch. Yeah.
Oh, actual lunch. Okay. Aside from like the technicalities of the business, what does your day-to-day look like? Like when you were starting up, and even now, how has it changed?
So I think my day-to-day when we started was very hands-on. So it was like doing all of the coding, like working with the engineers very closely. But now that the time we put in to like train people up and get people used to stuff, it's allowing me to spend more time working on the business rather than in the business. So I'm slowly detaching myself from day-to-day operations as much as possible. I still like to get involved because that's just who I am. But I try to, my next 12 months are focusing on how do I orientate the company towards the objectives that we set together, and how do I help people fulfill their own personal passion towards like achieving them. How do I understand how to delegate more effectively, and how do I kind of lead in a way which is clear and supportive, but also gives people the space to have autonomy. And then I think the other thing is around focus on growing the business in the best way, and building the right relationships internally and externally in order to kind of, make that happen. So my day-to-day is focusing less on the stuff and more on orchestration of the operation and
like managing, like overseeing all of it.
Yeah, and I don't like the term overseeing, but it's more like orchestration. I feel is better, because I use the term orchestration because everyone is it's like having world-class pianists and oboe players, and each of them have their own flair, and they know, it's more like a jazz band almost that's playing together, rather than, stereotypically in larger companies, it's kind of can be very authoritarian. So I like this concept of, collaboration and people working together to come up with what they think is right, but also the orchestration, because one of the key things is I'm probably one of the only people, well, I am the only person in the company that can see everything. Like I can see how everything is connected. I know how it's connected to a strategy. So sometimes when I'm getting involved in some of the finer details, I'm able to see why some of the decisions that need to be made there need to be made in a specific way in order so that they align to the greater, the vision and how it fits together. So it is a balancing act, and I'm honestly learning every day.
You mentioned this a few times where, you wanted to link up with restaurants and go into retail. So where do you hope to see Zess in 5 years?
So I really want us to see, I want to see us making a real difference to people's lives and helping people plan every day. I'd really want like our loyal user base to be able to open the app and just rely on it. Like there's so much misinformation out there with like diets and nutrition. And there's so many challenges to eating healthy that I feel like I'd love to be in a place where people can just open the app, trust the information, and rely on it to help them make a choice. And the only way we're going to do that is making sure that we're working really, really hard to make sure that the latest science is in there. And, we are not biased. Making sure that we're supporting people's lifestyles and really working around each individual and really personalizing around that. And, just making sure the user experience is just fun and easy to use. And I think if we're doing all those things, we'll get that result of where people like to use it every day. Yeah.
That's amazing. I hope one day I could see like Zess use the Zess app in Canada and order these like deli fillers from the other side of the world and other products that you may have at that point, or see this in my local superstore. Super cool to do that. Yeah. Any last words that you'd like to, I don't know, share with the audience, share with anyone listening?
Yeah, I think I was reflecting on it recently, actually. I think that it's really important, I think in general, what I've learned on the journey is trusting in what you believe in and really being confident about manifesting and creating what you truly believe in, because there's a lot of forces that you can't control, and there's a lot of things that you can't change. But by focusing on what you really believe in and working towards that, you're able to kind of create some sort of permanency in the world where your ideas can live beyond kind of what you thought. So I'm definitely seeing that in many aspects, and it's a pattern I'm seeing, and the deli filler being one of them, right? It's just a conversation, it's observation, but then it becomes a reality, and there's a product launch, and then now people are waiting for it, and we'll solve distribution, and then it will start like being out there in the world, and then people will see it in shops, and then I'll be like, yeah. And all the way throughout that journey, there's never like, I always get the question at different stages, oh, you must have been really pleased. But I don't feel pleased. I just kind of feels like another day, right? We did a trade show, because it's what I find helps make the highs and lows of entrepreneurship easier is not actually pegging your happiness to a point in time in the future, but really looking internally and thinking about what values you care about, and really for that really being the source of your self-worth and happiness. And then as you go on the process, enjoying the process more than the result. Because if you can turn up every day and say, fuck, I'm so happy I get to do this, then it's just great. You're happy anyway. So when you reach a result or get something, you may be happy for like an hour or half an hour or even a day, but then afterwards it just fades away. So if I could recommend anyone who's thinking about starting their own thing, is just focusing on you and what you value and working towards it, and just enjoy the process. And it prevents you from self-comparing, thinking about, I haven't got enough time, or I need to catch up, or I'm behind. All that melts away because you're just focusing in the present. So hopefully that's helpful.
That's definitely helpful. And I haven't had anyone give me this message, like from all the other podcast episodes I've done, where it's like, don't focus so much on the results and don't peg your happiness on that as an entrepreneur. And even just day-to-day life, but specifically as an entrepreneur, because it's like your entire life now revolves around you bringing something to customers. And if you can't produce those results, then it's like your business is going to tank. So I feel like a lot of people do peg their happiness on like, okay, once this launches, once I get my product and I get the income, like I'm going to be super excited and happy with myself. But I totally agree with you where it's like, you need to have that day-to-day happiness even before you, get to that point, kind of living in the moment. And it's easier said than done, but that is a very good message. Yeah.
Much easier said than done. It takes a lot of self-reflection, a lot of pain, a lot of like looking at yourself and thinking, why am I doing these patterns? Why are these negative patterns always happening? And really digging into it and accepting it. And that takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of self-reflection. And personally, I meditate a lot, so that's helped. But yeah, I feel much, much happier. And actually, interestingly, I saw a YouTube video with Drake recently talking about how his philosophy around how he's making records lately. And he said, I don't celebrate the highs and I don't feel remorseful about the lows. I just work. And I'm like, wow, that's why he's so damn consistent. It's true. He's just consistent. He's like, there's no artist that can touch him right now to his level of consistency and his commitment. You can say whatever you like about him, but he just produces those results. Mm-hmm. But ironically, it's the mindset that isn't chasing those metrics that produces those results. It's the mindset about him getting in the studio and just trying to put his best effort in the now, in the present, and knowing that the road is going to be bumpy. Same with Amazon. Jeff Bezos said, don't look at the stock price, because that's just a predictor and an indicator of where you are now. And that's what the market's expectation is right now. Focus on the intrinsic things that makes Amazon Amazon, focus on the next 10 years and think long term, and then the markets will catch up. Mm-hmm. It's the same message, but I don't think it's said often enough, unfortunately.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think that's a beautiful message. So thank you for sharing that. And like, this was very inspiring to see where you have come from last October to now. So it's been like a whole year. And this was just 12 months condensed. And it's just very exciting to see like where it's going to go in the future and how far it's come. So yeah, thank you for sharing that and taking the time out.
Awesome. Exciting. And thanks for having me on. And hopefully it was interesting. But it was good to kind of, talk through some of these things, because I think sometimes like talking through it helps you self-reflect as well. So it's been a good exercise for me to just think back at some of the milestones and how, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I'm also excited to see like the Zess cookbook, like the no waste, zero waste cookbook was a really cool idea. And Daisy's been doing really well with like having all these different, like, let's do a fruit theme, let's do this. And in the WhatsApp chat. So I'm just really excited to see like what all the creators are coming up with as well. And like I think they're doing like a Christmas cookbook, or there were some ideas being thrown around.
Yeah, there's something Christmassy going down. I think we're trying to work out. And then the own content stuff, I think there's going to be a big focus on kind of YouTube and kind of Reels and TikTok and stuff. So I'm sure there's going to be some fun stuff coming along. Thanks very much for setting up, Neha. And yeah, take care.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for tuning into today's episode, and we'll see you next time.